I grew up in a little community outside of Sacramento, California called Carmichael. It was a completely non-diverse community. Our family was one of the only Asian families in the entire community. So it was always kind of challenging. I struggled a lot with a crisis of identity for a long time because I never felt totally American because I didn't look like most people in my community, nor did I really feel very Chinese because I didn't know the first thing about being Chinese from China. And so it wasn't until much later that I realized being Chinese American was a totally distinctive group altogether. But my parents got a divorce when I was 7, my sister was 4. We didn't have a lot of money. Because my family struggled with money, I became ambitious very quickly, and I vowed to be able to emancipate myself very early on because I just didn't want my parents to have to struggle anymore. I auditioned for a teen magazine show when I was 16 years old called Scratch, and hundreds of high school students came to audition, and miraculously I was chosen as one of the 4 hosts, and that was my first entree into the television business. And because it was produced by a local news affiliate, I begged them to allow me to intern. But that was sort of my first foray into TV. I also thought at that time, if I can get on TV, I can maybe one day have a better life.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Ling.
And I'm Dave Saldana in Austin, Texas.
Today we're going to do something a little different.
It wasn't until I turned 18 and I auditioned for a news program called Channel 1 News that my life totally changed. This was a show that was seen in middle schools and high schools across the country. And it was a news broadcast, but they would hire young people to be correspondents on the show. This show sent me all over the world. It sent me to cover stories in Afghanistan, in Algeria, Iran, Iraq. And I was covering the Civil War in Afghanistan when I was 21 years old. And it was through that experience at Channel 1 that propelled me to want to become a journalist and to continue pursuing journalism. So I worked at Channel 1 for 7 years, during which time I traveled to dozens and dozens of countries. And for me, that opportunity to travel was something that really changed my life. It made me a smarter person, it made me a more well-versed person, and ultimately it made me a better person. And I know that there's a lot of stress right now amongst young people about the job market. But I'm convinced that if you spend time overseas or outside of your comfort zone, you will not only have better opportunities, but you'll become more marketable because your dialogue and your ability to expand the dialogue will be enhanced. But then I got to a point in my career when I wasn't feeling fulfilled. Like when I was doing The View, it was an amazing, amazing opportunity. And I had so much fun doing that job. And I learned a lot. But I didn't really feel as fulfilled as I did when I was out in the field, you know, reporting on people's stories and being immersed in different cultures. So when I decided to leave The View and move to National Geographic, it was a decision that really shocked a lot of people. But my heart has always been in the field, and I'm happiest when I'm in the field. I'm much happier when I'm with a family that is struggling through homelessness or drug addiction because I'm learning and my world is expanding. I know that I'm doing a show that's making people think, that is meaningful, and that in some cases is giving people hope.
So I make lunches for them, and I do what I can for them.
For me, if I have a chance to do work that is meaningful, I'm going to continue to seize it because life is short, you know, and if you can really provoke people to think, that's something that I really value. I used to travel to China almost every year when I was reporting for Channel 1. I lived in China in 1994. I was in a foreign language program. It was mildly successful. But I'm fascinated by China.
If it wasn't for my mom and dad, I bet I'd still be in the orphanage.
And China's Lost Girls, the episode that I shot when I was with National Geographic, was definitely one of the most meaningful shows I've ever done. The Chinese government allowed our cameras to be the first television cameras to follow an American couple to China to adopt their Chinese baby girl. And it was such a fascinating experience on so many levels. You know, so many thousands of little girls and baby girls have been abandoned in China as a result of the one-child policy. And as an American, when I first heard that story, I thought, wow, how can people do that? How can they abandon their child just because she's a girl? But then when I went to China and I started talking to people in the villages and countryside, they said, look, you have to understand, we're devastated that we have to abandon so many girls, but for economic reasons, it makes more sense for us to keep a boy. For me, it was one of those experiences where I took off my American-style glasses and I started to see things the way people in China see them, and it made a lot of sense in the Asian community. I think that we're so predisposed to wanting to find a job or find a career that will make us the most money, that will allow us to reap the most abundant rewards, right? But ultimately, what I've found is that if you pursue that which you are most passionate about, the things that drive you, the things that make you feel good about humanity, you'll be okay. The kinds of things that are emphasized in our culture are really the wrong things. You know, I think that we're constantly being sold. If you buy this, you'll be happy. If you do this, if you are this skinny. For me, I feel like if I'm able to do good work that expands people's horizons, that to me is the greatest gift.